Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all of my buds. This is episode 102, and this is an exciting one. We get to have a chat with Pablo Pintor, who is just an amazing human being and an incredible player, and has sent many heroes to the living legend realm. So we're going to get a chance to talk with him, and then we're even get his opinions on how the meta is shaking up with everything that's been going on at the past couple battle hardens. Now, before we get to all that, I do want to shout out the sponsor of the show, which is you, the patron, which you can find the link for the Patreon in the show notes. And, it helps us keep the lights on, the mics hot, and, us to continue to do this thing we love. And for well over 100 episodes now. And also, I do want to shout out to the merch. We do have some merch. It is in the show notes. The last day to order merch will be August 2nd, which is Wednesday, right after the Bud Rush Bellow. We will close the orders. And we have some I Survived 100 episodes of Fresh and Buds. We have some other cool stuff on there as well. All that will be in the show notes. Speaking of the Bud Rush Bellow and the YouTube, give us a like, comment, subscribe. We're very close to 500 subscribers, probably too close for comfort for me. Because I'm going to do the Levia cosplay, and that's going to be one heck of a time, I tell you that. And Gary is going to be the rabbit. Now, speaking of Gary, he is on the Bud Rush Bellow with me. He has a pillow, and he loves Viscerai. And that's all you need to know about Gary. And finally, I want to shout out to Greg, our producer. And Greg is the best, and Greg is cool because he edited this all up, and that's awesome. Greg, say something.
I'm giving up on you.
And also the Bud Discord, check that out. That's where you can submit listener questions and hang out with great people. And without further ado, after this very unhinged intro, here's Pablo Pintor. Okay, we are here with the former, two-time champ at this point, Pablo Pintor. How you doing, buddy? Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Hello, it's a pleasure being here. I almost couldn't come because of this heat that almost killed me. I was late to the start of this thing, but here we are, stronger than ever, ready to rock.
Yeah. I mean, this summer has been brutal. So it sounds like it's been brutal everywhere. So we are pushing through. Really happy to have you here. First of all, you've kind of become this legend in Flesh and Blood, which is very cool. In the competitive scene, Pro Tour 1, calling Antwerp, and we have someone who sent home multiple heroes in the game to the living legend status. So let's get to know you, right? So before we get to all that, to Flesh and Blood, I want to know, when did card games come into your life?
Ooh, that's a long time ago. I believe I started playing some extremely casual Magic the Gathering around, 12 years old, something like that, with my friends in school, And then I got into the Legend of the Five Rings TCG. I believe I was 14 or something like that, and I won a big tournament. So that kind of got me into the competitive scene of card games, I was extremely lucky, but, that kind of gave me the courage to really play them. I didn't play card games for a lot of time during my college. I couldn't afford playing card games and studying at the same time. I'm not that smart, sadly. And so, I came back when COVID. I also played Legend of the Five Rings LCG. Most of the people know me from that game. And when it died a couple of years ago, when the COVID situation ended, I got into Flesh and Blood, and it has been amazing. And I have been extremely lucky to find this community and share all of these experiences with them.
Now you won a tournament with in Legends of the Five Rings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was a pretty good player there.
Yeah. Well, how old were you when you won that tournament?
Oh, I won a tournament of that game when I was like 14-year old.
It's very interesting. You won a tournament of Legends of the Five Rings, 14 years old. Did you were you like testing, or were you just like playing it a lot and then you went to this tournament and you just kind of spiked it? You know, how was the process leading up to that? Because 14's pretty young.
I was just playing with my friends, and the tournament happened to be like 5-minute walk from our town. You know, like half an hour of train. So we went there, and let's say it. I was extremely lucky. Hey, that's like a crucial skill to have to win tournaments. You have to be lucky, you know. And yeah, it was amazing, and it was kind of the thing that drove me into playing more seriously, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, I have had some really good results in every game that I have played.
Well, that's awesome, and luck is an important skill, as you say. Is there anything that you do to prepare your luck, Pablo?
Important one. You have to. I don't know. You don't have to trust in it. Sometimes you will be extremely lucky and win the whole thing, and sometimes you will lose 3 games in a row and drop, and you have to roll with it. You know, it's a card game. There's variance, and as much as we want to control it or fight it, it's completely impossible.
Yeah. I mean, we always say over on another show, the Bud Rush Bella, that well, everything's a scab skin roll, right? Whether it's the game or life, right? So you roll high, you roll low sometimes. So, and hey, Pablo, you roll pretty high, which is awesome. So,
oh yeah, I'm happy with it.
Now, Flesh and Blood comes into the picture for you. You know, you mentioned during the COVID times, obviously for a lot of us. What drew you to the game initially? How did you hear about it, and what kind of solidified you into playing it like very seriously?
I was in this kind of vacuum where I didn't have a card game and I didn't know what to do with my life. And one of my best friends was playing at that time, was starting to play Flesh and Blood at the time. And he told us, my group and I'm in a team, the Sunflower Samurais. We're not like your usual competitive team filled with good players. We are just friends, you know, and we happen to have some really good players, but we have known each other from a lot of years ago. And yeah, we all started playing the game. At first, it didn't click with us as much as it does now. We played like some games of the Arcane Rising meta with Crucible of War, and game was much slower at that time. It was really mathematical. And when Monarch was released and Chain and Prism were added into the game, that's where we really started playing Flesh and Blood. Like, they were really broken, but they were like really fun designs, you know, like really cool. Yeah, so we started playing around that time.
Yeah, and you know, not to spoil what happens next, but you do send Chain away to Living Legend with your Pro Tour win, which was, you know, I get bittersweet because Chain's very cool. It was a lot of people's first hero. You know, when they came into the game, like when they announced the OP system, Chain was the best. People bought in, and then Seas of Agony went away, and then Chain didn't really get much worse, but everybody kind of put him away for a hot second. But, you know, were you a big Chain fan since its inception in Monarch?
I'm actually kind of not that big of a fan of Runeblades as I later turned out to be. At first, I really liked Guardian. I have always liked defensive playstyles and control playstyles in other games. So I enjoyed playing Bravo. I also really like his art and his cards, you know, the feel that it gives. And but yeah, he couldn't do anything against Chain and Prism around that time. So I had to switch decks. We were also in the Starbow era when the Pro Tour New Jersey was held. Pretty much everyone was they didn't forget about Jane, but they underestimated him. Like he could still do some extremely unfair things. Turns out that drawing more cards than your opponent in a card game is it's good. It has been good in every card game I have played. It's amazing.
Yeah,
And,
crazy how that works.
So yeah. If you take that and put it together into the same deck with Carrion Husk, turns out you have a really strong deck. And we found that if we played like this really slow block a lot at the start of the game kind of approach into Starvo, we did have a really good matchup into Herm. So yeah, we felt comfortable. I did travel to New Jersey on a whim.
Mm-hmm.
I have been 2 times on the United States before, but both times I was in Minnesota playing the World Championship of Legend of the Five Rings because I won some tournaments here in Europe, so they paid for my my travel expenses and the hotel. But I have never been able to properly do some sightseeing in the United States because Minnesota is cool. Minnesota in winter is not cool for a Spaniard. I was actually like kind of hiding with a blanket on almost most of the time. But I really wanted to visit, New York. Something so unreal to me. It's thinking that I, could travel there and play a card game tournament. And I was lucky enough to win Road to National during the previous season, and they were giving those extended art tunics to the winners. The times where the Road to National prizes were like extremely awesome.
Yeah.
And I could sell both the tunic and the mat they were giving for quite some money. And I thought, hey, I'm going to use this money to just go ahead and play in New Jersey and visit the United States with my friends. And I had like one of my best travels in my whole life. It was amazing, like, visiting Broadway, visiting all those kind of places you have seen only in movies, taking a walk on Central Park and all of that. So I had an amazing time. And then I also won the tournament and came back home with a lot of money, so that was a good trip. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's crazy that it was just like, you know what? Let's just go. And it wasn't like I'm going to New Jersey no matter what, right? And obviously it really paid off. And getting to see, New York is an awesome experience for someone who's never got to do it. And I wanted to know, going into New Jersey now, especially now that we know it was kind of on a whim, was there a testing process, that you had going into New Jersey, and if there was, has that process changed at this point in your Flesh and Blood career?
We have become much more professional in our texting. The kind of thing with my team is that there isn't, even when we are a lot of players, not all of them are able to travel or can take those days off work to do the show, or are that invested into competitive play. So most of the time it's just 3 or 4 of us playing games against each other. And our testing process for New Jersey was to play a bunch of games. We just played a lot of games. We had fun doing so it was, easy. We were in our Airbnb during the nights, just jamming games, because during the day we were visiting New York. So I ended up playing with not much sleep during the during the week. We have become much better at testing. I'm quite happy with where we are now. I also happen to, I don't know if I can say this, but I do have an article coming about how to test for Premiere Flesh and Blood events. So keep your eyes on that. So it will come like rather soonish, I believe. There I will explain much more thoroughly, much more in detail how we usually do things. But try to have fun while you test, and try to, think a bit and not just jam games. You need to discuss a little bit what happened during this game. Did this card that I put into my deck for this specific matchup work as I intended it to? what has happened. Do I need more blues? Do I need less blues? Like this is a process, and sharing your feelings and having some feedback from your opponents is really important as well. So mindlessly jamming lots of games doesn't cut it off. I believe it's wasting time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, where will this article about testing come out on?
On the LSS.
Awesome.
Webpage, so.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, you heard it here first, folks. Look out for that article. I know I'll be reading it. I got to say that I do appreciate the kind of sentiment that you're talking about of the vibe with the Sunflower Samurai. It's like a lot of friends, and it's a lot of having fun because it is a game and a hobby, right? And that's probably the most important thing. At least to me, that's why, Fresh and Buds, I want to hang out with my buds and play an awesome game, right? Do you think that there can be more, like, some pros can stand to practice that more, with having, like, building friendships and not kind of like business partnerships?
I do actually think most of Flesh and Blood teams do have really good chemistry between them. They are, I don't know if they were friends before or they have become friends later, but I see, for example, the Wolfpack, and they are like a lively bunch, and they are happy together, and they are having fun, and even if they are like this extremely competitive team, they don't forget that they are there to have fun. Mm-hmm. At least that seems to me from an outsider's perspective. So yeah, I do think that Flesh and Blood community has a much healthier approach to competition than other games I have played.
Yeah, and it does give that vibe. So, I hope you're right, because, I think it's very important, and it usually leads to longevity in teams and in games. And, obviously that's what we all want, right? We want this game to keep going. So, speaking of the game keeping going, we all have our different Flesh and Blood local communities. I do here in New Jersey. We have a great scene. It keeps growing. How is it in Spain? How is your local community?
Well, I actually live pretty far from any gaming store, so I can't play as much Armories as I would love. But there's been a huge spike in Spain. I believe it's in all Europe. Like there's much more players than they used to be. A lot of local communities sprouting out in different places of Spain. It's a really friendly and welcoming community. I'm really happy with, because this isn't something that happened by luck. Mm-hmm. It is determined by the people that was playing the game at the start of it. And, I believe we had like a really good core of players playing Flesh and Blood at the start, and it has extended off, this really good vibes, this welcoming community has extended off to every part of Spain. So we're pretty happy with how it's going, and I'm really happy that LSS gave us the opportunity to host Worlds this year. It is not in my city, but it is pretty nearby. I mean, all of Spain is pretty near. You can drive there like in 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. So from my point, I'm like right in the middle of Spain. Madrid is right in the middle of Spain. My local community is really strong. Lots of teams, lots of good players, lots of competition, and yeah, we have lots of stores here as well. Madrid is a really big city, and there's a lot of small towns close by that also have a lot of stores. So yeah, I can't complain. We always have a lot of tournaments and a lot of things to do. The competition never ends. When the Pro Tour ends, you have like Pro Tour qualifiers for the next one, or the Road to National, or Skirmish, or whatever, or a new set dropping and presentations. It's awesome. Like you cannot go to every event, and that's a good thing. Yeah. You can be picky with the ones you want to go.
Oh yeah, well I remember back in when I used to play Magic, it's so weird because like there would be GPs all the time, right? Grand Prix all over the place, all over the country here in America, and you're like, oh well, I'll just wait for one to be close and I'll go to that one. And in Flesh and Blood, I think we were so starved for events for a hot minute, you know, that we were like, I'll travel anywhere. I don't care. You know, I'll go to Ohio or something like that. and but now it's gotten to the point where we have something almost every weekend, you know, and that's awesome. And I think that's really good for the game, because not only does that mean that it's more opportunities to play, but it also means that there's enough players to warrant having these tournaments every weekend where people don't need to travel to all of them. So it's very cool. Now you mentioned Worlds, Barcelona, and it's very exciting. I think everybody's super stoked. I mean, for anybody who's ever been to Barcelona knows how awesome that city is, and for anyone who hasn't is very excited to be able to go. You know, as a Spaniard yourself, what are some tips for any buds traveling to that area this coming November?
My first tip, this is going to be like a really easy one. If you want to know anything, if you want to travel your plans, schedule your days to visit things, just ask us. If you don't know anyone living in Barcelona, just DM me on Twitter or whatever, and I will put you in contact with people living there. We do have some members of the Sunflower Samurais living there. They are going to work on a guide for people on what places to eat, places to visit, you know, things to do there. And I actually believe he's one of them is doing like a countdown with places to visit every day on our official Twitter. But yeah, if you have any question, if you want to schedule, if you want to visit other parts of Spain, as I have said, it's pretty easy to travel in Spain. We do have a really good train. I don't know how it's said in English, but this, you know, train connections. Train connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
In our country, like they are really cheap. If you want to visit Madrid, if you want to visit like some, you know, Spain has like it's a really diverse country with different cultures in it. I mean, we're not as big and as diverse as the United States, but we will have a lot of things to do here. Really rich and old history, and yeah, I really recommend anyone that can come to Barcelona to come there. It is an amazing city. My tip would be try to visit the Sagrada Familia. You will actually need to schedule a reservation there. So if you're aiming to come to Barcelona, you should look into it like pretty early. I don't think you will be able to go if you don't get your tickets, you know, until you're in Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
I really recommend it, and you know, as in every really big city, in every, you know, capital, be aware of where you are going. People will realize you're a tourist. Just the usual. Be wary of your surroundings. Be wary of where you travel to. But it's a safe city. You won't have any problem.
Yeah, and it's that's a good thing for anywhere you go. Just always be mindful, right? You know, and you know, trust but verify is a great way to approach, you know, human interaction. So, you know, I hope that I can go to Barcelona. I really hope so. And it might not be in the cards for me, but I'm really excited for everybody who will be able to go, because I know it is a beautiful city, and that's awesome that we get to have these awesome tournaments in beautiful cities around the world, right? And what a great opportunity to have the World Championship there. So very exciting. And, you know, hopefully the Sunflower Samurais get some home field advantage and take it down, right? Now, Pablo, this is a part of the show where we kind of transfer into some more Flesh and Blood talk by, you know, first of all, asking some of your favorite cards in the game, right? So it's called the Fresh Faves. And if you're ready to answer them, I'm ready to ask them.
Go ahead.
First, who is your favorite hero?
Bravo. Bravo, so stopper. I love his art. I love his play style. He's really weak. lately, but he could have had some resurgence with the Starstruck. Who knows? He's an extremely cool hero.
He really is, and he's not for everyone, right? I look at some of
Oh
his
no.
cards, and I'm like, come on, man! It's like, put your shirt back on, like we're relaxing over here, But I mean, I have no room to talk. I'm a Brute fan, so I don't even know if Reinar wears clothes.
Those don't have shirts either.
Yeah. What is your favorite weapon?
This is a tricky question. I would actually probably say Dawnblade. I really like the Dawnblade design and the design on the Orinthia. Like it's a really interactive, bluffing, guessing game, and I actually like most of the weapons feel like just raw numbers. There's no game, no nothing on them. So yeah, that's a pretty cool one. Really iconic too.
Oh yeah, I mean, super iconic, and is like a whole game plan, which is really cool. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's a great point. Sometimes it's just numbers. Even Rosetta Thorn that you have to work for is kind of stuff you want to do in Runeblade anyway. Raiden is a cool little game that you get to do. Hexagore, obviously, I bring up those two weapons all the time. I'm an Hexagore lover.
Hexagore is not a cool game, sorry.
It's a cool game for those of us who like to feel something, Pablo. What's your favorite equipment?
I guess Tunic.
Okay.
I believe Piandal's Spring Tunic is also like probably the most busted equipment in the whole game. But I do love how it opens up play styles, this pummel onto this Command and Conquer pitch in a blue, or you can just play a one cost instant on your opponent's turn, or you can pitch a blue and play an aura. It allows so much different things to happen in the game. It's probably busted, as I have said, and it's a card that probably warps the design of the game quite a little bit. But it is, like, as I said, another iconic card. Its art is beautiful, and I really, really like, all the possibilities that it offers you.
I mean, it needs to be a little bit cheaper, I think, for a lot of players. But
Yeah.
it is skill testing still. It's like, you have to be able to plan out your turns around it.
I actually opened one of them in my first draft ever.
Oh my god!
That was my entry point into Flesh and Blood, like playing some draft with a mixed pack or something like that, and opening one of them, and it was like,
I mean, that goes back to our luck kind of conversation. You're the luckiest man alive. What is your favorite run-of-the-mill card? Something you put in your deck, your non-attack action, your attack action, or your instance?
There's some cards that make me happy when I play them. There are several of them. I love Pummel. It's for Guardian players, it's like kind of a staple. Probably Pummel, but I don't know. I also like playing Iyslander a lot, and I was, when it first came out, I was playing this combo deck, running the combo with the Frost Hex and all the Ice Generation, and the Frostbite. Oh yeah, that was the Frostbite Generation. So Ice Eternal was like, it's not like this kind of extremely cool card, but it was always so satisfying when I actually got to play it, because if you're playing it, you have actually planned for it,
Oh yeah.
So that's another runner-up for competition.
Oh yeah. Well, you were really showing that you really are a Bravo player by saying Pummel there, and and the Frost Hex is cool. But I'm glad you brought up Iyslander, because as anybody knows that's paid attention to the past two Battle Hardens, it seems like, well, either Iyslander is the new top dog here in the meta, or it's just Rhea Adams who won both Battle Hardens. So for anybody who doesn't know, the past 2 weekends we had Battle Harden Cincinnati and Chicago here in the States, and well, Iyslander won both of them, and both of them were piloted by Rhea Adams. Now, this is very interesting. I'm sure that, Iyslander kind of took a back seat for a hot minute, right? We saw Iyslander kind of really take the world by storm in the Nationals and Worlds meta of the previous year, and kind of took a break as we got some other, great heroes kind of added to the mix. And we had some diversity too, at least at Cincinnati, right? So Cincinnati, we had 7 different heroes in top 8, and then, but Chicago, the second week, got a little bit more tight, right? We had 3 Lexis, 2 Dromais, 2 Icelanders, and, 1 Levia, my love. And I want to know what your take is here, because this from someone that's on like a testing team and getting ready for the Calling Birmingham and Nationals and then Worlds. What's your take on Iyslander now being kind of this new threat again?
I think Iyslander is pretty powerful right now. I think Rhea is really powerful right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think it's a mix of both. As I have said, you always need some luck to win tournaments. I do think Iyslander has some really bad matchups into some decks in the meta right now. The thing is that those decks got hardly punished. One of them was Asalia. Like the Asalia matchup was really bad for Iyslander, and Asalia got hardly punished by the last ban and restricted list. The Bullseye Bracers was not only a source of Arcane Barrier, it was also an extremely strong effect. So she's taking quite a hit in the Iyslander matchup. And we also received this little nice new card, the Warmongers. And that card hurts both Rangers quite a bit. And it fits nicely into Iyslander. It's a blue, costs 0, and it blocks for 3. So Iyslander has received a new little toy to play against one of her worst matchups. And, the other deck that was probably really difficult for her was Big Dragons. Dromai onto her game plan of just playing dragons. The Big Dragons usually had much more blues and was able to play better around, frostbites and such. And it also usually packed both Oasis of Spite and Sandcover, both of which are extremely powerful against Iyslander. The thing is that with Mara's recent success with, the Empress build, this kind of red line Dromai deck, that deck doesn't run any blues. It has a bunch of 1 costs, and it relies heavily on the Furnace to play 2 cost cards later into the turn. And it doesn't run as much dragons. It's almost the same number of dragons, but it lacks, the big ones, the ones that are difficult to remove for Iyslander. So dealing with this red line Dromai is much easier for there than it is to the big dragons deck. But we have seen just in these 2 weeks from Battle Hardened, we have seen like the meta evolve. We saw Michael Feng, I believe, was playing big dragons on the second Battle Hardened. So I kinda hope that there will be even more deck development, deck refining, leading to Calling Birmingham. I'm not happy at all with it. I was actually pretty happy with my deck before these 2 weeks. I was like, hey, for once, I do have this deck I'm happy with. But then these 2 Battle Hardens happened. The meta began to shake so much, and then everything began to change. And I'm not sure anymore. I will probably just throw a dice to choose which deck to play and then live with it. We are like doing since the last week. We're doing like a lot of testing, but it is difficult finding something. Even if you're used to play any deck, I can quickly switch off any deck, but there's no right answer to this kind of metas, and it's really interesting, and it's one of the things that makes competition challenging and fun is not knowing what your going to face. You have to try to analyze what has happened, in these past tournaments, and kind of guess what you will face during Birmingham. And it's fun, but at the same time, it's like really exhausting. And I'm looking for Birmingham in just 4 days. So, as I have said, I will probably just close my eyes, pick one deck, and go with it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of interesting, right? Because the Dromai that is kind of red line, low to the ground, had the bad matchup, like you said, and then obviously Big Dragons has a better matchup into Iyslander, but then you could just pick up Big Dragons and not see a single Iyslander in a tournament. So, like,
that's where luck comes in. As I have told you, you need luck. You need luck during your games. You need luck during your matchups. You need the lucks during pairings, during tiebreakers. It's an awesome skill to have.
Yeah. And, listen, I mean, speaking of, it might be a bad matchup for Big Dragons, but my girl Levia has started to get into the top 8. So top 8, both Battle Hardens, right? One by Pat Eschke, and I'm blanking on whoever top 8'd Chicago, but obviously got huge upgrades. This was our set. We got redeemed / consumed. We got shadow peed. We got a whole bunch of new tools to mess around with, and we're starting to see some mild success here. Do you think this is just early meta success? Not a lot of people are preparing for much, and Levia is just kind of sneaking in there, or is this Levia competitive for the long run?
I do think Levia is a solid competitive choice now. She got a lot of new cards to work with her. Her output is significantly better. She got rid of one of her biggest weakness, that was like fumbling one hand at the end of the game and just randomly dying to your own blood depth.
Mm-hmm.
So Consumed goes in there like nicely to save you at the end of the turn. I do think she has a really good matchup into both Big Dragons and into both versions of Dromai, honestly. Mm-hmm. You need a tune deck to fight fatigue, because Dromai can try to fatigue you, but I do think you do fine even against that. But this really good matchup that you have into Dromai is a really bad matchup that you have into Iyslander.
Yeah.
doesn't usually, this deck that Ria has had like a lot of success with is full arcane. So she won't attack you. You won't be able to defend. You won't, get that much cards, those many cards in your discard so quickly. You'll have to start off slowly. You don't have that many blues, and your really big turns, Blue Draft Bellows or whatever, are always conditioned by a channel like Frigid so it's a really rough matchup for Levia. But she also has a really good matchup into Dromai, and she can do pretty well into Ranger. I'm expecting to see some more success of Levia. She came out rather strong out of this new set. As Boltyn is much better than most people think.
Oh yeah. If you were to sleeve up Boltyn, here's a good question: would you go Sabres combo?
The question is
you would never sleeve up Boltyn?
Yeah, there we are.
All right, well, that question's null and void. But let's say theoretically you were a different person, Pablo. If you were to sleeve up Boltyn, would it be Sabres or Raiden?
Raiden. Actually, Boltyn is one of the first decks I played into the game. As I have said, I started playing during Monarch, and we had we both a few cases, and we actually had a pretty neat Boltyn deck. It was neat by our standards. It was a horribly pile of losing cards, but it was a joke. I actually quite like how Boltyn has shaped in this meta. I don't think he's up there, to win tournaments right now, but he has won a lot of tools in this set, so he's not that far off behind as he used to be. I do think Raiden is much better than Sabres now. Probably you shouldn't even run the Sabres combo in your sideboard. I don't think it's needed anymore. Raiden can do some extremely powerful things, but it is a deck that needs full hand to do things on its turn. It can fumble really hard with non-charging hands. These banners can sometimes cluster in your hand and really mess up your turns. He's good, but he's not that good as the tier 1 decks.
Sure.
But he's a pretty nice option there. I'm really happy because we have some friends here in my team which really enjoy the deck, and they have been having a blast with it since Dusty Lawn dropped.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly opened up a lot of options for him. So, we'll see. I would like for the Raiden to have its day in the sun. But I think we're going to have to wait a little bit. But day one meta, Dust Till Dawn comes out. What these two tournaments were like. If you were to have attended these tournaments, what would you have sleeved up?
I actually thought at the start of our testing that none of the new heroes were worth, playing in competitive scene. And I would have probably sleeved something to counter Rangers. I don't know, maybe Dromai, maybe Usuri, something like that. Like something extremely targeted against Rangers, because I thought that they would completely dominate the metagame. Turns out the Bullseye Bracers ban was much harsher than I anticipated. And Iyslander make this extremely cool comeback. So now it's much more difficult.
Yeah.
You have Dromai, you have Iyslander, you have Lexi, and both three of these decks are extremely different from each other. And I don't think there's a deck that can do well against all three of them. You can just play one of them, hope that you're getting your good matchups and moving on, or you can just try to target some of them, but not all three at the same time. I don't think that's possible right now.
Yeah. Now, Big Dragons, you said, is quite good into Iyslander. Are there any other decks that you think will rise to the top in response to Iyslander kind of being a tough, contender?
Most of my experience playing Iyslander comes from playing the Bullander list that Hamilton created. Like, that was such an powerful deck, I actually played Iyslander during the Spanish Nationals a little bit before Hamilton dropped this new, concept of playing Iyslander. I played like a full arcane Iyslander as well in the Spanish National. Ended up losing the finals. It's difficult to say. There are several decks that can do really well against her. We have seen that there are some means to try to fatigue her as well. And she doesn't have like this kind of panic button that was the hypothermia that helped a lot in lots of matchups. I don't know. Maybe we'll see some decks backing off more blues and ready to fight her. If you have more blues and Arcane Barrier 3, all these full arcane damage builds fall off pretty hard. But yeah, can you play that and still expect to win against Lexi and against Dromai? I don't know.
It's very tough. I mean, Iyslander seems to present quite the puzzle, and I'm really interested to see how it really shakes out, especially with the Calling Birmingham coming up. Definitely interested to see what you're playing. I won't ask what you are, unless you want to say.
Know.
You don't know yet? Pablo doesn't know.
Like, changing my decks during the last week is like a trademark. It's something that I usually do. So no worries there whatsoever. I will choose something and go with it.
Yeah. And then my last question actually here before we get to the listener questions is, you sent Chain to Living Legend, and now we have our first replacement of Chain, Vincent. Do you like Vincent? Is this a deck that is this an appropriate replacement? Obviously, Chain was very powerful, so it had to not be that powerful again. Certainly, Vincent is not, but still very interesting, very cool. What are your thoughts on Vincent?
I really love Vincent design. it's kind of a mix between Guardian and Runeblade. You know, it's a Runeblade with almost every card blocking for 3. You want to have like these small hand turns where you play off some, banish one of your cards, generate some rune chants in any way, and then sending a really efficient attack on your opponent's way. That's pretty cool. I actually love the idea. I don't really enjoy. I know this couldn't be avoided, but it's a shame that we can't use chain cards at all. Like, these heroes were supposed to be, you know, a replacement of heroes that evolved into the Living Legend status. But New Prism, maybe she's not as strong as you need it to know to play on a competitive level. But she uses all Prism card. She uses Heralds. She can use Auras. She can use Iris. You know, there feels like a connection between the new Prism card pool and the old Prism card pool. They are shared. Of course, Luminaries was broken, Forty Life was broken, and you know, you had to tweak it. The problem is, I don't think there's like a healthy way to add back something similar to how Chain worked in the game. And this new Shadow Runeblade doesn't play at all like Chain did. So all of Chain's pool is actually, I won't say useless, but it's not efficient, and it's just such a shame, right? Because I was hyped, you know, to have that still down, grab my chain deck that is sitting there and sleeve it again, and throw some bounding demigons with, you know, shadow puppetry into my opponents, and suddenly most of his pool doesn't align with what Vincent wants to do. That being said, Vincent is really cool. I really like her design. I haven't been able to solve the fatigue problem with her. If I did, it could be a really powerful deck.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you can approach games. Banking several cards into your blue depth doesn't pay off. You cannot remove them twice per turn. You're going to be taking blue depth every round, and it feels like she kinda needs more tools similar to Prism, but she's in a probably better spot than Prism right now.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, I guess probably until you run into the fatigue matchup, you can steal some games with Vincent.
Oh, no, of
And,
course.
yeah.
She works really well against, you know, people that are to be playing the game. You know, she plays the game really well. She has lots of loot. She can block. She can deal pretty decent damage. You can take off turns. That's pretty cool. The problem is when you're faced with this kind of fatigue strategies, and there are lots of decks that can do that right now against you, and it's pretty difficult to force damage through, or to force as much damage as you need to.
Yeah.
You know, taking down 40 life is pretty difficult when your average turn is like 12. If you have a good hand, 14. You know, it's pretty difficult to take down 40 life.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's interesting. So it's like, you know, it is a shame. Like like you said, like the chain stuff doesn't really work. Like I picked up my Shadow Versers. I was like, I think this is going to be crazy. This is going to be so good. And then it was not really. I mean, it doesn't seem to be. I mean, there's still a lot of time for people to figure it out. It's only been out for 2 weeks. So very exciting. And maybe one day, Pablo, you will send Vincent home as well as Chain.
I actually enjoy playing her. So if I can solve, you know, this fatigue problem, expect me to play her some.
Awesome. Well, we're all looking forward to it. Now, Pablo, I have a couple listener questions. Now, you can all submit these questions on the Buds Discord, which is free to join. It is in the show notes. The first one comes from Pat Shaw, who asks, how do you plan to best exploit your home field advantage to better your chances of winning Worlds?
I actually think I won't have to do anything. I expect people to come to Spain. How do I put this in English? Beers are really cheap in Spain. People are not prepared to have cheap beer is in Spain, I am prepared to how cheap beer is in Spain. So I expect a lot of my competition to be heavily intoxicated.
That's an awesome way to get a home field advantage. It's, just every pro that comes into town, just like, yeah, that's bar downtown, we should all hang out there. You only need a couple euros. So, so no, that's awesome. Now, a question from Crixus: how's it feel being the person responsible for helping to push a few prominent heroes over to the LL threshold? And he puts in parentheses here, seriously, thank you for taking out Oldham for us.
My relationship was only with a love-hate one. I loved playing him, but I hated that because of Oldhim we couldn't get good Bravo cards. Because Oldhim could just take them and play all of them. He was like a better Bravo. We saw it during the last iterations of Oldhim's deck. He was playing an Authors, and he was like not playing any ice or earth card at all, like one earth card in the whole deck. Like, it was actually a Bravo deck with Crown of Seeds, and it was much, much better than Bravo. It feels good to have pushed the old man over that threshold and forget about him, but I'm missing him now. I will play Oldhim if he was here right now with us. I will play him for sure. But yeah, it's kind of cool because both in Chain and Oldhim, I was just lying there and not doing much with them, and then on the first tournament that I go and win with them, they die and I can't play them anymore. So yeah, it's cool. It's actually cool. Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse, right?
There's people that have done much more than me to get those heroes LL'd, but I will take the credit. I'm good with it.
Yeah. You know what? You just nudged them across the line. So, I mean, I guess I should tag on to that. Can you please play Briar at the Calling Birmingham for us?
Just for the joke of it, it would be a good idea, right?
All right. Yeah. Everybody comment on this video. Please play Briar, Pablo. This question comes from our producer, Greg. Would love to know what heroes that receive support in Dusk Till Dawn that you feel will be the most impactful in the next season.
I don't think Levia is the best one. I do think that Bolting deck is pretty much solved at this point, and he isn't up there with the best decks. Vincent, if we don't solve, this kind of fatigue problem in any way, I don't know. And yeah, probably Prism deck building can be much better, but I haven't seen, her doing these things that can make her win the game. These, unfair things. All the good decks do fundamental unfair things. And she can just do them if she goes like 3 or 4 loops, and that's like pretty difficult. So I don't know. Levia seems really good. She doesn't have to do like anything special. She was already a pretty good deck that could do a lot of damage. She's above rate in almost every cycle. The problem with her is that you need, fine piloting. You need to manipulate your graveyard to always be hitting 6s. You need to be careful of what you're blocking with, what you're using, how much you're pressuring, and of course you always have like this chance of just throwing 4 cards and any of them doesn't banish cards of your discard, and then you are taking like 10 damage and dying to yourself. That has been solved up to a certain point in this set. So I really expect her to be a force to be reckoned in this meta. She has access to Carrion Husk. She has access to Blood Rush Bellow. And, when you transfer into the consumed Levia, it creates an unfair situation. And that's what we are aiming for with our competitive decks.
Yeah. I hope you're right. And I hope to see you play some Levia in some tournaments.
I have practiced her a lot.
Oh, okay.
I will tell you that.
That's awesome to hear. Next question comes from William Knuckles, who comes from the awesome YouTube channel Table Pit, does some cool UPF stuff. And I already asked about Briar, but who's next on your list to push into the living legend status, if not Briar.
Oh, that was the obvious answer. If not Briar, I do think Iyslander has quite a bit of living legend points. I would have to say Iyslander, or maybe if Briar LLs and Rosetta goes away and Viscerai can receive new cards to get out of jail, I would love to play Viscerai again. It's one of my favorite heroes. I really enjoyed playing him during Pro Tour Lille. And it's an extremely awesome deck. So yeah, I would say one of those two, Iyslander, or if he receives some new toys to play with, Viscerai. Sadly, as much as I love Bravo, I don't see him winning, a lot.
Yeah, he's going to get those random 2 points from Road to Nuts and ProQuest for a while.
He may spike at big tournament or something, but it's pretty easy to touch against him with not so many sidebar options. So yeah, I don't expect him to dominate, a meta game.
Pun intended, right? With the dominate. And Capolo here asked, can you please explain in general lines what your testing process is preparing for a big event? We already mentioned there is a whole article coming out of it. So
I will refer to my article. I have always wanted to say that. So
read the article. And then finally, Gary, my co-host on the Bud Rush Battle, asks, what are your thoughts on a one-cost Viscerai build? Does Viscerai success really rely on the Mauve, Radiant Skies into Shrill lines?
This is a good question. Like, there are several builds, but yeah, I do think that if you want, to get the most out of your Mauve, Radiant Skies, your Rosetta Thorn, Mauve Skies to activate Rosetta Thorn and such, you're aiming to have 2-cost attacks in your deck. Viscerai also has like extremely good selection of 2-cost attacks. Shrill, Rune Blade Assault, I don't know, the one that creates 2 rune chants. There's a lot of good ones. So I believe right now he's probably tied to that kind of build, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone comes up with a new deck. I'm a terrible deck builder. Like, I'm a horrible deck builder. I just net deck things and change. I'm really good at, improving them, but not at creating them. So, yeah, I'll be waiting. If someone creates a 1-cost build of Viscerai and it works, I'm all here for it. Because the 2-cost one has a lot of problems against dice.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And as we said, Iyslander is here. And you know what, Pablo, that's going to do it for our listener questions here.
I survived the question from the listeners. I'm happy.
Yeah, they're the buds are pretty easy going. Maybe if you come back on, they might get a little bit harder.
I don't mean.
yeah, they'll be like, all right, we got to really get them this time. I gotta say, this was a lot of fun, Pablo. I think
it was as well for me.
You like we talk about something in the Buds community here is big bud energy, kind of being cool, warm, hanging with friends, and you do all of that. And I think you're a great ambassador for the game. And I really appreciate you coming on and giving us your time here. I'm super excited to see what you continue to do in this game because it's always very exciting, right? When Pablo Pintor enters a top 8, people start talking. They're like, all right, what hero? What's he doing? And how is he doing it? So it's very cool to get you on and kind of pick your brain. And I hope you do return on the show at some point. You're always welcome. And can you please plug anything that you'd like to plug, where people can find you?
Or you can find me in my Twitter. I don't use anything else, sadly. I'm not a technological person. I don't really use much, social media or things like that. But it has been like an amazing podcast that I really enjoyed being here. You made it like so easygoing. This had like a really good flow. So I really enjoyed it, and now, of course, it could be down to visit anytime.
Awesome.
So just ask me.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I want people to be comfortable here. You know, we're just chatting about a game that we all love. So, you all can continue to find me on Twitter or whatever the heck it's going to be called next. Apparently, it's going to be called X.
Oh,
I don't X. Find me on X. X going to give it to you. At Fresh Buds Pod. YouTube, we're very close to the 500 subscribers. You know, give us a whole like, comment, subscribe. If you listen on Spotify or anything like that, you can rate on there, and that's really cool. Helps us become more visible. And the Buds Discord is a great place to hang out, which is all in the show notes and the link tree. And also check out the Patreon as well. Now, Pablo, I always like to talk about food at the end of every podcast because I love food. And you just so happen to be living in Spain where we're going to have Worlds. What is your favorite Spanish dish that folks should try when they come to Spain?
This is going to sound like something really typical, but I am originally from Valencia.
Okay.
That's the place where paella originates from, if you can eat a good one. Ask the locals to know where the good one is and not the tourist traps, but if you can eat a good one, it's an amazing dish. It's worthy of all the attention and all the international spirit it has. I assure you.
I personally love paella. It's like all my favorite things in one dish, which is like the best thing. Unfortunately, I can't find a lot of good paella. So I hope that I can go to Spain, or at least at some point go to Spain, so I can have like the real thing. So that's awesome, Pablo. I'm hungry, like I am at the end of every podcast. I do it to myself. but thank you all. We ran out of time for Charmer, but I'm sure we'll get to him next week. Pablo, thank you so much, and everybody have a great week. Hey, buds. Thanks for sticking it out to the end of the show. I just wanted to quickly talk about something. After we were done recording a little bit later in the day, I found out that the Tall Timmy, our friend, our bud, Paul, is stepping away from Flesh and Blood. And it's very, very sad because we all love the Tall Timmy and we all love the great influence he's had and the great energy he brings. But that being said, I know how much he loved Flesh and Blood and he loved this community. And I don't think he would have made this decision if he didn't feel it was absolutely necessary. So, I'd like to implore people to respect the decision. And obviously it's totally fine to miss him. But I hope personally that this is a positive thing for Paul. And I want all of us, all the buds, to kind of look back on all the great things that Paul did, right? Made excellent content that was fun and positive and brought a great energy. He was a guest on tons of shows, including this one, and always brought a great vibe to all those things. And I hope that we can all look back on the positive influence and kind of the big bud energy that Paul kind of brought to the world and the Flesh and Blood community, and that we can continue to bring that same energy in his absence. He's the best. And Paul, if you're listening, we all love you, and we all hope that this is the right thing for you. And please all treat each other with respect. This is how you grow a community. Paul helped with that. There's no way that we would get to this point if it weren't for people like Paul. So let's learn from the Tall Timmy and be a team. So thank you for listening to that. I just wanted to address it. Paul's a good friend, and we're all going to miss him in the community, but I'm hoping that it is for the best.
Well said, Tommy. I only have one small thing to add. Paul, this one's for you.